Hello everyone, my name is Steven Zapata. I'm a concept artist, illustrator, online art teacher, and former instructor at Art Center College of Design. I would like to introduce you to my new drawing course, Form from Imagination, a course designed to help you draw with confidence from your mind. Maybe you want to be a professional illustrator or designer, maybe you want to be a master with a pencil, or maybe you just want to be the best artist that you can be. Beautiful goals. But it's not always clear how to improve the work that you do from imagination. Over the past 6 months, I've taken all of the little eurekas, tips, and essential exercises that gave me confidence drawing from my mind and compiled them into a sequential course. We start with the absolute foundations, covering the scientific nature of light and shadow, how to hatch, how to create flat tones, how to render spheres and cubes, and step by step, we move through combined shapes, complex shapes, organic shapes. We cover how to simplify extremely complex subjects like the head into basic shapes so that you can handle them more easily from your head. We look at how to understand and treat details. And by the end of these 14 chapters with over 50 video lessons, you'll be ready to do complex designs from your mind with fidelity and energy. And all the demos are done in pencil on paper, so you can do all of the assignments even if you don't have a fancy digital art setup. But I also have demos, instructions, and modifications to the assignments for those who do want to do them digitally. Here's how it works. Go to formfromimagination.com and sign up for the course. Download the assignment book and start watching the lectures. Do the assignments at your own pace. Take your time with them and use this self-study to develop your patience. When you're done, post your assignments in the exclusive community hub, and I'll personally critique your work with drawovers, diagrams, and advice. I want you to know, this course is no joke just because it's online. It is challenging content, and it is more complete than it would be if I was teaching this class at an art college as I have before. If I was teaching this class in person at Art Center today, I would just play these videos in class, knowing full well that they're the most concise, focused, edited, step-by-step way to convey the material. So I'm serious when I say, this course isn't just a substitute for a college-level course, it's better than a college-level course. And you don't have to pay thousands of dollars per credit and wind up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So thank you for checking out the course, thank you for watching this and for your support, and thank you for drawing and making your artwork. The world needs it. I'll see you soon. The year is 87039, new nonlinear time. It's been 50,000 years since Steven Zapata's final art stream, but we still live in a golden age defined by the gifts his stream bestowed upon mankind. Faster than light travel, eternal life, Steven cloning, and the keys to a truly galactic human civilization. My name is Stave Satapaz, a reminder clone of Steven Zapata, an exact reproduction of his personality as constructed by an AI compiling millions of hours of his original art streams. By all accounts, I'm exactly like the original Stephen's public persona, just more muscular, exactly as he would have wanted. I travel the stars on my light tracer, a dream of Stephen. My crew is, of course, all clones of Stephen. Some of my officers are reminders like me, but not all. Some are bioclones, and yet others are aspectoids, clones who, instead of trying to capture his full essence, amplify a particular portion of the original Stephen's personality. We've spent hundreds of years drawing, exploring, and philosophizing while snaking our way through the stars, spreading the good word of design. But we've had another, secret mission as we've cruised the cosmos. I seek information on the legendary originals, Stephen Zapata's true drawings that he flung wide across the stars at the end of his life on Earth, never to be seen again. My crew thinks I'm looking for them for the same reason all the other madmen do, because they would be valuable beyond all reason. But they don't know what I know, that a critical mass of originals in the hands of a trained reminder can provide a psychic link to the original Stephen mind. Once I collect enough, I'll be able to fulfill my destiny and achieve psychological continuity with the original Stephen. And through me, he will live again to usher in golden ages of art forever. Drawing Ascendant, the eternal chronicles of Stephen Zapata. Lasting Legacy 1, Epic 1. Greetings. Greetings to you, sweet fellow travelers on the drawing journey. Hello to Mihail, Eva, Arashi, Ken Levine, Aisha W, Soko, Lemon Lime Luki, Saber Stylist, Reynola Dominguez, Aki, Luckful, Nobody, Arashi Nakamura, Fictional Key Art, Abel, and just about nobody else. That's everybody. I got to absolutely everybody. Let's see what we draw today. Timer on. Music playing. Audio levels check out. G foils locked in attack position. Is it G or S? And yeah. It's hot as hell today in New York. Right away, first thing in the morning. I'm gonna sketch a little bit. We might go back and keep working on this guy from yesterday. We might, you never know. You can't prove that I won't. I very well might do it. You can't say no. I did poke him a little bit this morning and just did, filled in some more of the colors. Really garish like that on the hard light layer, and then the filters after that sort of even everything out. Good morning, Stephen. Any recommended website to look out to buy paint gear at decent price quality? I haven't shopped around for like what's the actual best value or anything, but I usually order from Jerry's Artorama. Not out of loyalty, just on balance. They seem to have everything slightly cheaper than everybody else. They also seem to have a wider selection than Blick. But I don't know. I don't know if they ship international. That might be only for people in the United States. Hello, Disc Breaker. I know, we're live on the internet again. Stephen, do you have any advice for doing a drawing that's spread across 2 pages on a sketchbook? Any specific advice for that? No, not really. Just don't put anything too important in the gutter, but that's obvious. Many a beautiful finished drawing has been done across the gutter in the middle of a sketchbook, so it's no real impediment. My fan sounds like it's trying to take off all of a sudden for some reason. Sorry if you guys can hear that, but it's very warm. I should invest in a fan that's very quiet. This one's getting pretty old. It's not some great fan to begin with. Anybody got any recommendations? Anybody have a fan they really like that's like whisper quiet? I don't even know how possible that really is, but. It feels like if it's moving air, it's like moving air creates sound, and there's no way around that, so. There's probably only so quiet things can get if air is moving. Third consecutive day that I watched Stephen's stream while refusing to pick up a pencil. Now that is truly defeating me. That's how you defeat me. That shouldn't be possible. It should be completely impossible to resist drawing while watching me. The Dyson one is silent and like $1,000. I have to admit that I would consider it, but I would need to try it first. I'd need to find someone who has one, and I would need to prove it to myself that it's actually silent and that it, while being silent, it feels like it's moving a good amount of air. Good morning, Daryl. Art and Sound says, okay, so your approach is super loose and completely improvised. Are you going into this without an idea and simply reading the clouds, so to speak? In this case, yeah. But it's not always completely improvised. If I have a clear idea for a picture, then it's less reading clouds and more trying to strike upon something very specific. But for very complicated pieces, I also do preparatory sketches and stuff like that. And those preparatory sketches do tend to be drawn like this, very improvised and loose. But then when I go to the final piece of paper, I'm not as loose. I'm pretty loose. You know, I still want to get the initial energy, but I'm trying to head towards the successes that I got in the small sketches. Have you tried non-screen tablets? For most of my years drawing, I use non-screen tablets. I think they're better than screen tablets in many ways. I only started working on this screen tablet 3 years ago or so. Or I guess 2 years ago. Because I got it at the same time that I released, around the same time that I released Form from Imagination. So that was about 2 years ago. Coming up on 2 years ago. How do you keep that loose feeling while working on something specific? My pictures look so much worse when I have a specific scene in mind, when I turn my head off and just draw. I force myself to draw crazy when I start. So I know what the picture is because I did the sketches. But even if I'm on an 18 by 24, first off, I don't look at the sketches, right? It's like I remember all the important things about the sketch. I don't want to look at any reference because that will make me inherently try to copy the reference. And I just draw nuts. I draw insane. I draw like I'm the best artist in the world. I draw like I could not possibly make a mistake. And I draw on that 18 by 24 exactly the same way that I draw when I'm drawing tiny with little wrist movements. And I purposefully push it crazier, 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 more uncontrolled, more wild, more problems, just what other people would perceive as problems, just crazier marks, aggressive curves, really nuts. Like I draw like this when I start an 18 by 24. I draw lines like that because I know, despite my best efforts, wherever I start, the render is going to lose 70% of the energy. So I try to start with 180% exaggeration of the energy so that when it loses 70%, I can hopefully land at 110%. I refuse to be afraid of drawings. They're just dust on paper. There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. If a drawing can fill me with trepidation and fear, there is absolutely no hope that anything else in my life will be okay. So I refuse to be intimidated. I'm gonna turn this down because the noise is really annoying me. It's making like a weird grinding sound at the end of its rotation that it doesn't usually make. I think something got in there or something into the base where it rotates. Hello, Eugen. I'll pretend I'm working on my laptop while watching you stream. Nice. Nice. Getting paid for the Steven Zapata stream. Excellent. Did I even turn it down to 1? I did. That thing's really annoying me right now. I'm gonna have to take it off its base and figure out what the hell got in there. I was up until 3 a.m. this morning doing one of my scribble inks while watching your other streams. Fun times. It became a habit to do that when I'm doing my drawings. Excellent. Excellent. Buggy says, damn, just kind of summarized my entire life by answering that one question. I get anxiety most days and panic attacks when I'm at my worst, so maybe that's affecting my art too, no doubt. How could it not? I don't know. It's a lot of the anxiety about the act of drawing that people and artists experience, especially specifically for the act of drawing. Like, you know, it's not like I never experience anxiety about, like, you know, career and stuff like that, but like everybody feels that about any career, you know, and everything has its natural ups and downs. But the act of drawing, I very rarely does the anxiety anchor there, or does it cross into there. It's like, and when students ask, like, well, how do I not do it? You know, how do you not have anxiety? I never quite know how to answer. It really comes down to, like, I insist. I just insist. I mean, how it feels when you make your art is probably one of the only places in your whole life where you really get to insist. I mean, almost everything else in life crosses over with, you know, it has stakes for other people, it affects others. It's not like art can't, especially once you make it a job and all of that, but at its core, this is like the one place in your life where it's really just utterly up to you. So I'm just like, no. If I'm gonna be intimidated by a drawing, there is absolutely no chance in hell that I'm going to handle stuff like taxes or relationship problems or, you know, the real suffering of life, sickness, death, loss. It's like, I'm never gonna handle that the way that I hope that I would. I'm never gonna have any grip on living through these moments in a way that has intention if I'm going to let a self-generated ghost on paper unhorse me. It's just, it doesn't bode well for everything else. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. I insist. Hi, Steven. I have a screen tablet and I couldn't get used to it. It just felt so off when I draw on it. Should I get a new cheap non-screen tablet? I used to draw on a non-screen tablet. I was doing fine with it. Sorry for my bad English. Yeah, it's not for everybody. The ergonomics are very different between a screen you hunch over and a tablet where you sort of sit with your back straight and use your hands the way you're used to using a keyboard and mouse. The ergonomics are very different. And then it depends what kind of art you make. I'm really heavy on drawing, on line work, so a screen tablet makes sense to me. But if the vast majority of my practice was value paintings, stuff like this, I would do all of these on a screenless tablet. You just require less precise manual control for value shapes than you do for lines, for tight line work. And even then, I used to do tight line work on the tablet. I only switched to a screen tablet specifically when I wanted to be able to do a lot of handwritten notes on student feedback. That's why I got it when I launched my drawing course, which is on sale, and the info is right underneath me on stream. It was that one thing that made me switch to a screen tablet. I never felt, I had used Cintiqs before. I got a Cintiq when I was like 18. 17 or 18, and then 2 years later I sold it. I got rid of it. No, I didn't sell it. I held on to it, but I just used it as a monitor. I rarely ever drew on it, and I eventually gave it to a friend. It's not for everybody. It depends on the kind of work that you do. And they're overpriced for the most part. Handwriting specifically never felt right for me on a screenless tablet. It'd always get really long, scale wrong. I couldn't like judge, all right, where's this line gonna end? And it just made handwriting a pain in the ass. So when I knew handwriting was gonna become a day-to-day activity for me in Photoshop, I was like, it's time to get a screen tablet. Because Photoshop sucks so bad that handwriting your notes in Photoshop is easier than using the text tool. Stephen, are you familiar with Bill Watterson? Yes. And John Catch, The Mysteries. John, I don't know. The art in it is fantastic. It reminds me of you, especially your In the Trees drawing. I gotta check that out. Let me make a note to myself. Open a little tab here. Oh, I've seen some of these. Some of this art from The Mysteries I've seen, but I didn't know what it was from. Hello, John. Hello, Charlie. Tobias says, wait, what? Clickbait.Steven? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Have you ever ran into wrist problems? Not enough that it made me have to stop drawing, but I've had wrist pain before. You gotta stretch them. And pretty hard stretches. I've recently started doing the yoga one, where you do tabletop and you put your hands backwards and you press your wrists into the ground. That one has helped me a lot recently. I had some wrist pain show up that was like not going away. It wasn't debilitating, but I was noticing like, fuck, it's like something's happening here because I'm feeling it every time I like open a jar or anything like that. And I did that exercise it completely got rid of that after like 2 weeks of doing that every day. But I'm not some ergonomics or fitness person. You should do your own research into what's a good way to strengthen your wrists. You are indeed doing the drawing thing again? I am. So it is not clickbait. I will deny these accusations against me that I would be a clickbaiter. These calumnies will not stand. I will dissolve you with the light of truth. Steven Zapata exercising video, when? Yeah, I can't mess with that. If I do that, that'll completely change the audience for the channel. That's all people would want to see after that. And it wouldn't be long before I'm a certified Peloton instructor, and then I wouldn't have time to do YouTube anymore. I couldn't stand the fan. I'd rather sweat for a few minutes. Let's see how long before I give up. Problem is that the fan was not staying consistent. It would stay at a consistent hum for a second, for a few minutes, and then it started sounding like it was taken off. And I can't be having that. Oh wait, it's not my fan. It's my PC because it's hot as hell today. My PC's having to crank the fans to cool itself. I think that's what I was hearing. All right, fan, you're off the shit list. I got a new AC that I hope is going to be much quieter. I bought it a couple weeks ago in anticipation of streaming during the summer. So let's see about that. I hope it'll be quiet enough to run on like low on stream. I just haven't tested it yet because I have to do a whole freaking rigmarole to get my old AC out of the wall. It's covered up with moving blankets right now. I usually have 2 or 3 smaller fans running. It's literally no problem. It's literally no problem when I'm not streaming. When I don't have any audio concerns, I have no problem working in like basically a wind tunnel. It's great, but once you're recording or streaming, new considerations enter. Damn it, just when you think Steven wasn't going to draw, he gets you again. That's right, Cynocephalus. That is right. Have you ever seen the Marvel characters in the Mighty Marvel Comic Strength and Fitness book? That's a thing? No. You could draw yourself doing the artist exercises while showing your mastery in depicting anatomy. It would definitely break the internet. That's what everybody wants to see. An artist being a fitness influencer. Andrew says, Steven, any advice for artists that were initially considering film and game design but had to start out in advertising and paleo science medical concept art jobs? I mean, those are hard jobs to get too. I mean, it kind of sounds like you're framing it like it's a negative or something like that. It's like you start out wherever you can start out. There's nothing, people, I don't know, a lot of the time students seem to think, and I mean specifically students going to art school, they seem to think that an art career is somehow required or should be expected to, or you are entitled for an art career to work on the 4-year college timeline. Like, all right, well, I went to art college for 4 years, so now art career, right? And it's just like, no, it is under no such obligation. It has no need to come on any convenient timeline that you would pick. It's like, it's an art career. It's like, you want to be a concept artist in movies, games, or anything that you said, advertising, medical concept. It's like, they're crazy jobs. They're crazy jobs that lots of people want. It's like, it's a very creative job, very cloudy job. You know, people really want those jobs, and the people who get them hold on to them for a long time. So it's just, you start out wherever you can start out. And then you say, all right, well, I still have the goal to go for film or game design, and you do your other job and you keep heading towards your bigger direction. Mizubi says, how do you get rich as an artist? What schools get you connections to a high-paying job? I don't think it's a good idea for anyone to think about getting rich as an artist. People also mean different things by rich. If you mean like rich, it's just probably not gonna happen. If you want to be rich as an artist, probably your only route is fine art, like crazy fine art, like getting represented by New York City galleries and showing at Art Basel and Miami and, you know, just all the other big shows. There's really no other way. You've got to play the contemporary gallery game. And I don't know much about that world, but you need to be basically willing to do anything. I mean, and you've got to be fabulously interesting. And you've got to like get with gallerists who are going to aggressively push you and groom you. And I don't know, for me, it's far too many factors. For some people, that's going to feel like an art career, but to me, it would be something else. It wouldn't be the art practice the way that I would want, but that's probably the only way to get rich. You could be well off, you know, but most artists are going to, even pretty successful artists, like a lot of your heroes, for example, living heroes, people who you guys follow on like Instagram and stuff like that, you know, they're struggling to stay middle class, you know, that's what it's going to be like for most artists. Especially if you're only going to do the art, you know, if you're not going to bring in other things like expanding your business and having all different revenue streams and things like that. If you're just going to do the art, then yeah, what's in the cards for most people is like, you're going to work your ass off to stay middle class. It's very unlikely you'll get rich. So it depends what you mean by rich. People mean very different things by that. The good old money laundering banana duct tape to the canvas gig. Well, you know, people talk a lot about the money laundering thing, but I know a few fine artists, and I've known people who are going down that route. And the money laundering thing might be true, but it's true for like the auction houses and the galleries. It's not. I've never met a fine artist who I ever got even an iota of an impression that was interesting to them at all. For the individual artists, everybody makes fun of the banana thing, and you know, certainly it seems like it's asking to be made fun of. I don't know much about the piece or the artist, but my initial impression was that the piece is done tongue in cheek. But most artists, even really fine art, far out ones, are very sincere and genuine about their practice. They're really on their own trip, and they take it seriously, and they want to do great work. You know, it's just not, you know, it's easy to scoff at it from our drawing bubble or something like that. But outside of our bubble, it's like, it's art, you know? Chris McDaniel says, I hate your realism. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the whole world has been telling you, explaining your whole life, like, well, don't do art for money, right? Like, you don't, it's a very bad motivator, a very unwise motivator, a very bad reason to do art. I mean, lots of, most people who do a craft in a trade union, like someone who runs heavy machinery or does plumbing or something like that, if you're in a union, most people like that will do better financially than most artists ever will. It's like we have basically everything working against us financially. I'm sorry if the realism is disappointing, but I mean, I don't know who's been telling you that art is a good way to get rich. Especially if you're doing what most of us here are trying to do, which is draw goblins and stuff like that. It's like, it's not a route to riches. And mind you, again, people mean different things when they use the word rich. I think when I use the word rich, I'm in New York City and I've lived in New York City for most of my life and I'm from here. So when I use the word rich, I think that skews quite a bit higher than a lot of other people, right? I have a very biased viewpoint, but. You know, I'm surrounded by the financial capital in the world, you know, and I like personally know investment bankers and finance bros and things like that. So I just like, that's more like in my life, you know? So when I say rich, it skews higher. So this conversation's a little tricky because people mean different things when they say rich, you know? Can we associate being rich with being famous? Again, it depends what you mean by famous. I mean, there's a lot of, especially in art, like there's a lot of, again, like I said, a lot of your artistic heroes have second normal job, non-art jobs. Actually, I misspoke. I said it's a second non-art job. No, their primary income is a non-art job. That's their job. Art is not their job. And just because they have, 700,000 followers on whatever, and they never talk about that job, you just assume it's coming from the art, that their life is their art, and it's not actually the case. And then you meet them personally and you hang out with them, and then you, you realize in mid-conversation, like, oh, you're a project manager. You don't do art for a living, It's just, there's a lot of things not being talked about. And people are under no obligation to divulge those things, right? So it's like you can be famous and you're not rich off of your art, you know? Do you like Kim Jong-il's work? Of course. Who doesn't? He was one of the greats, one of the incomparable greats. It is so hard to not zoom in with screen tablet. I know what you mean. Jerry says, this may be a dumb question, but where is the cutoff point? The midtones or the highlights? I struggle with knowing what to leave out when inking a face from reference, for example. What is the cutoff point? What do you mean by the cutoff point? When I'm doing pure black and white, I usually this is a little too concrete because every natural drawing, of course, has dither, but like, what would be the form shadow? The true shadow is just a solid black shape like that. And then what would be the halftone, which is a part of the light, not the shadow, I hatch out from that solid shape. And then depending on how soft I want that transition, I can cross hatch. Until the transition starts to soften, or instead of cross-hatching, I can just scribble. And if you kind of squint at the barrier, if you just scribble, if you just do these little circles, you can see the edge becoming softer and softer and softer, less defined, less defined, less defined. It really becomes very much like drawing in graphite in this way. Just need to be very sensitive to the edge, and I need to be very clear in my head that the halftone is technically part of the light, not the shadow. So again, I'm not like consciously thinking that way, and I'm not rigid to that, but as a generalization, that's how I'm sort of making distinctions between what I'm gonna draw and not draw in ink. I feel like nowadays name sells more than quality products, like make a mediocre film but slap Dwayne Johnson on it and it's an instant hit. Yeah. And maybe it was always that way, but whether it was always that way or not, sure does feel like it's like that right now. You don't use reflected light in ink? Sure, but that would be after the little, what I explained. The reflected light should generally be, everyone's work is different, but the base form light to form shadow relationship is always going to be the basic structure for your work. And if that doesn't work, reflected light is going to hurt it rather than help it. Where do you find the right art academies, like ones that actually teach you good skills? There's a few good universities left, like SVA, Art Center, maybe Pratt, Savannah College of Art and Design. Otis, but almost all of them are, in my opinion, almost all of them are, just like all colleges really, or a lot of private colleges, are just getting fabulously overpriced. So they're a very dangerous thing to throw in with. But it also comes down to what skills you're looking for, because if you're just looking for quote unquote realistic drawing skills, then there's a lot of ateliers out there now that are much cheaper. They're basically small businesses. And those will teach the academic realistic drawing skills very well. But then that's all they teach, you know. They don't really teach design or creativity or do much in the way of critiquing like creative assignments or anything like that. If you're going to do 4 years at an atelier, it's going to be 4 years of learning about and getting critique on, well, does your drawing look like the still life? Does your drawing look like the model? Does your drawing look like the model in front of a high school photo style backdrop of like there's a forest back there, but this is the first creative picture you've ever done, so even though you can render the hell out of it, it all looks kind of awkward and stiff. And then when you're done with that, they're gonna sort of kick you out into the world and be like, all right, good luck, you know? Are online art programs like yours sufficient education, skill-wise? Well, something like Form for Imagination is, I would say, definitely sufficient for an introduction to form, right? I mean, I think I put everything you need to know to say I think I get how form works in it, but it's like, what do you mean by sufficient education, right? Because, okay, that's good for form, but then you need to go a la carte everything else in a sense. Because, you know, I don't have a course on every fundamental. And then at each one of those junctures, you sort of have all these new questions like, all right, well, is this course good? Is this course good? Is this going to fit with this? Is this going to fit with that? You don't need to go to school at all. It's just, what is your tolerance for picking your own path as opposed to having someone pick your path for you, you know? Everyone's going to have different answers for that. Mazubi says, I just feel sad, you know, I want to do my best, but I don't know where to go. The desire to do your best is it can be very hot. You know, it can really affect your emotions. It can make you sad, like you said. It can make you angry. It can also make you crazy. So it's something that you really need to take seriously. You know, how hot is that desire to do your best? Your best for whom? You know, are you sure it's just for you? Are you trying to appease some image that you don't truly understand? Like, there's a lot of unwise motivations that can be built into that. And I wish I had an easy answer for you. But the truth is that in art, there is no just golden seed or easy book I can give you that means if you do this, you will have done your best. You will have achieved all your goals in art. That's not how art works, unfortunately. It's like, you know, maybe there's things like that in the rest of life. Like, I really want to be a lawyer. All right, how do I know I'm doing my best? Well, maybe if you can get into Yale Law School and go on from there, maybe that's good. Other things in life approach that kind of thing better than art does. But art will always resist that. It's just not like that in art. Everyone knows it's hard to be an artist for a reason, because you are inherently trying to do something new and interesting if you have a really deep love for art. And by definition, that means that no one can hand you the path. or else it wouldn't land you somewhere new and different. So that's one of the pains of art. That's also one of the beautiful things about art, because it forces you to reckon with yourself and your desires and to be forgiving to yourself and have a lot of compassion for yourself. It's like that difficulty is what opens such a vast landscape in art, but it is a difficulty. It is a difficulty. And I just don't think there's any easy way around it. There's tons of people who have gone to the very best art schools in the world and worked very hard and then just failed to build an art career. There's no guarantees in art. I have a rough time with loose sketching, says Faded Ink. Like the old man on the bottom left, I just feel like it has to be perfect. Any suggestions on seeing in solid shapes for blocking and sketching loose? Well, the perfectionism is the main problem there. If you carefully dissolve the illusion that perfectionism is even like a thing, that perfection is possible, I think that that'll make you free up much more automatically. It's like, what does it mean that it would be perfect? You know, investigate that. I mean, perfect is a sort of impossible image that you are holding up in your mind. It couldn't possibly be perfect. And it also carries with it a reversed understanding of yourself, right? It's like, why would you ever do anything perfect? Why would you ever do this impossible thing? To aim for perfection is the realm of the masters. It's like, if you haven't been doing this for 40 years, why are you wasting your time thinking about perfection? Like, don't worry about it. If you're not doing perfect things, you are doing the absolutely natural thing that beginners and intermediates and even advanced practitioners are supposed to be doing. It's like, it's utterly backwards to expect perfection of yourself. Failures, imperfection, are you being in line with reality? So don't worry about it. Ayub says, hi, Stephen. What pushes you to draw when you're already so good? That's very kind to you, Ayub. So we already know it's not practice motivated. We also know it's fun, but does it feel like to just draw for someone who knows he can do everything? I think people don't believe me when I say this, but I do say it all the time on the channel. I draw to be in direct communion with God. That's the only reason that I actually draw. And that will probably be my reason for the rest of my life. And that's quite a motivator. Mizubi says, yeah, my dad is really unhappy with ateliers and just refuses to support me in that. See, there's, like I mentioned, that's a different set of problems, right? Like it's difficult because, like I said, trying to please someone else, a parent, a rival, right? People have really deep rivalries in art. That's always going to confuse the artistic process. The problem is that when those people are like your parents, they're also like the source of your resources for your pursuits for a while. And there's no easy answers there, you know? You're gonna have to find a compromise on stuff like that. And inevitably, at some point in your life, you're gonna have more freedom. You know, at some point in your life, you will and you're gonna have to break away from relying on what mom and dad or anybody else who's supporting you is sort of gonna say, that's a go, that's a no-go, right? Especially because most of the time they don't understand art. Like, who are they to say what works or what doesn't within art? I personally feel very lucky that that conversation with my family was one conversation. I sat them down at the dinner table just once and I said, I'm gonna be a commercial artist. People do this stuff for games and movies. And they were like, Jesus, all right. And that was it. So. Soko says, perfectionism is fear disguised as integrity. That's good. That is good. That about sums it up. Is it a good idea to apply the have low expectations to never be let down mentality to our own artwork? How about just never be let down? There's, again, art is not like everything else in your life. It's not like your job where you have a boss. It's not like your relationship where someone else's feelings are involved. It's not like fixing a car where if you do it wrong, someone might die. It's not like investing someone's money for them where you threaten their livelihood. I'm just trying to think of any random example. It's like, it is unlike everything else in life. As long as you haven't added those things to it, right? If you're not doing it as a job yet, you know, obviously you can add a lot of things on, but at its core, it has nothing to do with anybody or anything else. It's like an emergent, floating, mystical, invulnerable, impregnable realm of your own making. And within that realm, you can craft it however you want. And people don't understand that because they haven't even noticed that they've taken on other people's expectations in that realm already, right? Which can be part of the craft later, but at its core, it doesn't need to be anything. And that utter freedom means that you can make it whatever. So how about just never be let down? How about just have I have utterly grandiose, I mean, insane expectations for my art. If I actually said what I'm trying to do with my art, half the people would leave this stream. Some people would wonder if they should put me on some kind of a watch to put me in a psychiatric institution or something like that. I have the largesse of what I hope to do with my art, what I hope to pull out of it for myself, what I hope to do with it for others is absurd. And I also can never be let down. It need not align with logic, with reason, with mundane Monday morning psychology. It is utterly free of all of those things, and it can be designed in a way so radically, it is so radically open to design, unlike everything else in your life, that if you haven't tried it, you couldn't fathom it. You really could not fathom it. So how about just never be let down? And that's the end of the story. There need never be a single moment of pain and suffering involved with art, not one. Every one that emerges is contingent on things that you have added to the practice. And if you can understand that on a very deep level, whenever pain and suffering arises because of a particular game that you have chosen to play, you can just defabricate all the way down to the core and experience utter mystical freedom and a peace that can only be equated to a psychological treasure realm. And then go back to the game once you feel better. That's all possible with art. Art is not like other things in life. It just is not. What to draw when you don't know what to draw? Well, the face of God. Stephen, when studying a specific subject, e.g. faces, would you say it's more beneficial to do a lot of quick drawings or one or two longer, fully finished ones? Both are important, but the main problem is that most people never get to the finished ones. So both are important, do both, but don't spend forever on the quick drawings. Do the finished ones. The finished ones are a source of a huge amount of improvement that a lot of people miss. And when people are looking for speed, to increase their speed in drawing, most appreciable increases in speed come after you spend 100 slow hours on a drawing, not from doing, 80,000 2-minute sketches. Because there's a lot to learn in the fast sketch. It really distills things down so you can understand the essence of the subject matter, but it is also only habituating you to doing the 2-minute sketches. It can't be the complete, unless that's all you're interested in doing, it cannot be the complete practice. Do you listen to music while working, or you think that it's distracting you from getting creative ideas? I listen to music sometimes. As a general rule, if I'm designing things or something like that, I don't listen to music. Designing, trying to solve a specific drawing problem, that is really hard. If you're trying to design like a character, for example, that has all these constraints based on a book or something like that, there's enough balls to juggle there just on the drawing side that I personally find I can't really listen to anything while I do that. Or else I don't get the best results. The more straightforward a task becomes, like let's say I have the design is done, the drawing is finished, I just need to render something now, that's a much easier thing to introduce podcasts, audiobooks, music to. But the really base design problems are very difficult for me to have music going for or anything like that. Facts, Stephen, what about instrumentals? No, I mean, at that core where I need to do the hardest work, nothing. I mean, I personally just need total silence. I just need to be completely with my own flow. But that's going to be different from artist to artist. I mean, I'm not saying anybody else needs to do that. I have a different relationship to music than a lot of people do. Music is not like, some artists really find music to be like, they experience it as intimately linked with their creativity while drawing. And I don't have that. So it's possible that someone's link there might be so strong that it's counterproductive to separate music. But I would say don't trick yourself into thinking that's you without experimenting, and don't trick yourself into thinking it's you because you just can't bear to be alone with your intrusive thoughts. You've got to be sure that the music is there to support. I guess what I'm saying is it's like if you can be in silence and not have a panic attack, and then added onto that, you find that music enhances the creativity, then I'd say you're good. There's no issue. But if you find that if there's no music, podcast, audiobook playing or something like that, that you have a skin crawling experience in that state because your intrusive thoughts enter in drawing and you start hating yourself or remembering past traumas or things like that, that's actually a different problem that isn't really about the art. And there, I think there's something that needs to be tackled. But But again, for me, that's not really the issue, because I fully understand that music is not intimately linked with my creativity. You know, I don't feel the need that a lot of artists feel to have like music playing that aligns with the subject matter they're drawing, right? I draw monsters to Ariana Grande all the time. Like I just don't, they're not tied together like that for me. Zeka says, I found out, Daryl said same reason I draw. I usually tell people who ask that it's like a prayer. Yeah, that's actually very close by once you've sort of broken down some walls. I found out a great deal of what I do in life is trying to explain things to people, and now I'm at a crossroads. Half of me wants to show others what I mean, and there's another voice saying I should focus on myself and please myself with no regard to others understanding it or not. It still bothers me that others don't get what I mean, in art, of course. In the long run, it's probably going to be a balance for you. I mean, if there's both, like if you find that a great deal of what you do in life is trying to explain things to people, and that's because it comes naturally to you, rather than you have a job where you're forced to explain things to people, then in the long run, it's probably going to be both. Like the complete art practice will usually come to encapsulate all of your natural inclinations, you know? Hello, reaching for divine, my sweet Matt. Albie John said, how did you know art was your passion or that you wanted to do it professionally? Well, it was, I don't remember a time where I wasn't drawing. So it was just like a given that it was a passion. I've been doing it since I was very little. I knew I wanted to do it professionally. That came later. I didn't know I wanted to do it professionally until I encountered concept art as a job, design as a job, which was when I was about 14. What year did, let me check, I think it's 14. It's whatever year Revenge of the Sith came out. No, 15, when I was 15 years old. Revenge of the Sith was 2005. So, before that, before 15, I loved drawing and I did it all the time. And I had teachers and art teachers who noticed that I had a great love for it. And, you know, a lot of like high school and elementary school art teachers, that's not their main focus. You know, they sort of took the art job because it was, you know, they teach math really, but oh, they like to do art when they were kids. So they're not really super up on what the current state of the art industry or the art markets is. So they didn't know anything about concept art and things like that. So they looked at the things that I liked to draw, and all they could really think of was like, do you want to be a graphic designer, or maybe you should draw comic books like Spider-Man and things like that. And when I was young, I knew right away, even when I was young, like, no, I don't want to. I saw what graphic design was, and it was doing logos, and I was like, well, I don't want to do logos. I want to draw stuff like this. You know, I like characters and bodies and things like that. And then people were like, oh, well, if you like that, that's comic books. You want to draw Spider-Man? And I was like, I don't really read comics. But I don't, and I didn't. I wasn't like a big fan of anything. I didn't like collect Batman or Spider-Man or anything like that. I'd read a few comics every now and then and looked at the art in them, but I wasn't a fan, you know, so it didn't charge me up, and it didn't make sense to me to make that my profession when that stuff hadn't stuck with me. When I found out what a concept artist was, when I sat through the end credits of Revenge of the Sith, and I saw that that was doing the kind of stuff I actually like drawing, I said, oh, now I want to do it as a job. Before that, because of me not jiving with graphic design or comic books, I actually wanted to be a scientist, not an artist. I wanted to keep doing art, but when people ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said I wanted to be a physicist or a cosmologist. Those were the things that aligned with me most, that I also knew were jobs. Who doesn't love drawing Balrog to 7 rings? Indeed. Indeed. Indeed, my friend. Ain't got enough money to pay me respect. Let's poke at our fisherman's over here for a bit. I took his shell off. It wasn't working for me. It didn't make sense with the other guy that I drew having the spines coming out. It was just making a weird shape because it was getting so rimlit by the sunset. It just wasn't contributing much to the picture. There it is. That was him with the shell. It's just like that shape became too boring, repetitive at that angle. It's just like, it's holding the picture back. It was keeping rim light from hitting like the shoulder and the arm. And I just got rid of it. Is there a default process for larger drawings you'd recommend, or should everyone try and come up with what suits them? For example, some people separate value layers for color comps from color layers. Yeah, I think everyone should find their own process. My process for large drawings is it's not one they would teach in art school. They would say it's not advisable. So I definitely think people should find their own. It's very unlikely that anybody else's process is going to work perfectly for you. You know, like we were saying earlier, it's like you're into art because you're looking for something new and interesting. So why would every answer for your art practice be in somebody else's practice? Doesn't quite make sense. I don't know if I want to do this tail, but I'm testing it out. Buggy says, do you sometimes experience art highs? I remember joining a Proco competition with Marco Bucci as the judge and was super inspired by knowing that he will critique my artwork. Like, I never felt that good making art before. It was incredible. That's great. And yes, I experience art highs all the time. The art euphoria can be very, very extreme. Hey, Joe. Is this for the project? Not this one. I just wanted to draw fisherman's. Hey, where is Ahmed? Where did you hide him? I keep him in a cupboard in my kitchen. He's stuffed up in a little cubby above my popcorn and gnocchi, dried gnocchi. And every day I open it and I give him a little bread and he goes, nom, 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 thank you. And then I just close the cupboard and I see him the next day. Ayub says, do all the artists that you admire have a weird philosophy around why they do art, just like how world-class athletes need to have a stronger reason for doing what they do other than getting good? I mean, yeah, for the most part. It's art. Art is inherently non-commercial and non-business oriented. We have to trick the ad men and the studios into thinking that it's very commercial and all of this so that we can charge for it and make a living and eat food. But at its core, it's just not commercial. It's just not a commercial endeavor. So yeah, most great artists have some weird shit way out there at the edges. Not all of them, but the ones that I like certainly do. The idea that art is just some very normal commercial thing and all that is very new. It's not how people thought about it for most of history. It's a contingent cultural construct. My allergies are bad today. Matt says, Steven, when folks at conventions ask me where I studied art, I'm just going to say Steven Zapata Academy. That's good. That's good. Steven, if it's not copyrighted, please use Letting Go, ambient background music by COAG as a background for live stream. It's probably copyrighted. I use a library that I specifically license so that I know I can use it on stream. Is there a way to get the course but pay in installments? Maybe in the future. There's a way I could set that up, but I would need to move things around. It's definitely possible though. Hey Steven, are you into the cyberpunk genre? I've heard they are making a Blade Runner show. Not really. Not much into cyberpunk myself. I'm more of a fantasy guy. When will the course be in Spanish? I have a Spanish translator going through right now, but it's going to take a while. It's a lot of work. Zeka says, you drawing right now, are you whispering thoughts about form and light and perspective and stuff, or are you doing something else? I've noticed I've started drawing while trying to believe. I am not I'm not actively thinking. No, I'm not whispering anything to myself. I'm like, I am just what's in my visual field and the marks that I'm putting down. I'm like just looking most of the time. I used to have to think more consciously while I worked, but at a certain point you sort of consolidate most everything down to instinct, and yeah, I really just, I'm just looking and reacting. When I think, it's usually a very simple thought like, does that look good or does that look bad? And I don't worry about the rules. If I say it looks bad, I just say, what would make it look good? And I start moving my hand. Lack, that's weird. You said, Steven, how is Fanny? And she immediately, right as that popped up in chat, she got out of bed and came and stretched on my desk. How weird is that? She's fine. We've been going for about 2 hours here, and I'm not feeling so good. My allergies are kicking in, and my canker sore is making it very hard to talk. So I have a bunch of things on the to-do list I need to do anyway. So I'm gonna get off of here in a few minutes, once we hit 2 hours or so. So if anyone's got any last questions or things that I missed, you can feel free to re-ask. I'll see what I can get to before I go. Yeah, MF is correct. That's my internal monologue. I usually just boil it down to Stevie the best. You streaming tomorrow? Yes, probably. I've got a canker sore too at the moment, eating as hell. Yeah, they suck. This one's in just the right spot that it does make it quite, I scrape it every time I speak. And it wasn't so bad at the start of the stream, but with all the talking I do while streaming, I've been scraping it for 2 hours without a break, so it's really starting to hurt. My pleasure, Joseph. My sweet, sweet Joseph. Damn, my computer is screaming from how hot it is in here. I gotta get the AC in. Would you recommend when drawing traditionally to use a blending tool for the shadings or not? It's not for everybody. I use one, but you need to use it right. Like the way that I always put it is that I draw with the blending stump. I'm not using it to soften things. If you use it just to soften things, it's gonna make the drawing look worse rather than better. Use it to draw. Use it like a pencil. Use it to add. You're not softening things, you're adding soft information, and that makes it contribute to the drawing rather than detract from it. How do you balance your everyday life with your art study? I have 10-minute breaks at school, but I feel like the environment isn't ideal, and I wonder if scenarios like that are just a waste of time. No, I mean, 10 minutes, you could do an appreciable sketch in 10 minutes, for sure. I mean, anywhere where you can sneak in your drawing is good. How do you balance everyday life with your art study? I mean, at this point in my life, art is pretty firmly ingrained, you know, it's my livelihood and all that. So I can get a lot of it into my life. The bigger problem is making room for life rather than art, usually. So I'm maybe the wrong person to ask for that, you know? And Schaefer says, are you open to adding a few already made critiques to the non-feedback version of the course? Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. I have thought about doing it many times. I've imagined that would look like me doing a streaming style video like this one and just walking through a few typical past critiques showing the examples from the students. just to highlight some of the common missteps. Yeah, I'm open to that. I would, it all just, everything's a time issue at this point. You know, everything in life is a time issue. On that subject, how do you pre-visualize a drawing in your head? Is that where working with reference can help build that up? I don't pre-visualize, very rarely. Visuals will pop into my head while I'm driving or in the shower or stuff like that. Like an idea may come very visually charged, and then that can be very inspirational, but I don't focus on that mental image. Once it comes, I deal with it on the paper. I don't trust my mental images. I don't think they're ever as concrete as people think they are. I trust what's on the page. So I start scribbling. I spend very little time in my head. I look at what's on the paper and I react to what's on the paper. And that's where I do the vast majority of my work. Stephen, I've struggled to designing shapes in my drawings, always somehow lose them in the process when inking, rendering. Do you have any tips? Sorry for my tunnel vision, my skill problems. The thing that usually works for people is to exaggerate them, just make them very extreme. All processes that you layer over initial drawings and stuff like that, it's very easy for things to start blurring, losing their initial statement. It's almost an inherent quality of adding process steps. So you want to start rather pushed so that when they get pulled back, they land closer to what you wanted. Good day, sir. When will you stream again with your friend Ahmed? Man, a lot of people asking about Med in stream today. I don't know. We do stuff whenever he's around, whenever he's in New York, because he visits New York often. So I don't know when that next time would be, but probably whenever he's around. All right. Cynthia White says, hello, are you drawing Monster from the Lagoon? Hello, Cynthia. I'm about to leave, but I am not, well, for all intents and purposes, I'm drawing the Monster from the Black Lagoon. It started as a turtle demon, but it transformed into something else as time went on. Thank you, Joseph T. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We didn't do much work on this. We spent most of the stream doing those sketches, but a little poking goes a long way. Let's save this file too to the old sketchbook folder. Soko says, you helped my inking be more confident today. Thank you and take care. I'm very glad, Soko. Did you ever go through a phase where your art style looked as if you were a clone of another artist? I was never accused of that. I remember one time someone called me a Wes Burt clone. I took that as a compliment. I've had people tell me my work, certain types of my work look like Carlos Huante. I take that as a compliment. I don't know. I'm just so arrogant that almost any negative thing someone says about me, I always just focus on the positive. Like, they tried to insult me, but they betrayed themselves to some level in the insult. You know, they didn't even realize they were sort of implying how good my taste is or how good I am at drawing. And the insult always washes right over me, and I just get really, like, the rest of the day I'm like, Carlos Huante, eh? Yeah, I guess so. You know, that's how that stuff always lands with me. Jonathan says, hey, Stephen, at any point did you consider giving up art as a career? What kept you going? Not in any serious way. The closest I've ever come to giving up on art was like thinking of moving to other kinds of art. Like, I mean, it's been a few things, but like there were brief periods where I was like, maybe I'll try to get into motion graphics instead or something like that. It's stuff like that. I've never seriously, I mean, there's been really hard times, but I'm a difficult person to answer this question because it's like art is all I've ever done. Like it's very unrealistic for me to give up art as a career. Like, what else would I do? You know, if I gave up art as a career, the options open to me would be much less financially viable or anything like that. Like art's all I've ever done. I have no skills or resume for anything else. So that kind of becomes a hard block to keep me from taking quitting art very seriously at all, you know? Goodbye, Girl Bard. No problem, Zeka. I'm happy to help. I'm going to stop reading questions because my mouth is really hurting. Boxer Wing, I'm leaving now, but good morning to you. Tim Duncan, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, we're all influenced from time to time, but in the long run, I don't think it's a big concern because you can't really maintain being a clone of another artist. You've got to, just inherently, you're going to move on. You're going to become your own thing. You can't mimic someone's art forever because you're not them, you know? So you may pass through that mirror for a little while, but you'll naturally grow out of it. Girl Bard says, do you think that talent exists and how does it manifest? I do. It's a longer discussion. It's probably not something for me to talk about at the end of a stream. I've talked about it in other places though. Just to summarize, I think that talent, I don't know, especially as a teacher, like, yeah, talent exists. It's just not a huge deal. People do start with varying levels of a grasp of particular topics that relate to art. Your temperament can also appear to be talent, you know, like if someone just temperamentally experiences less suffering while they push themselves in a disciplined way, that's going to produce improvement at a rate that is going to look like talent. But it's not really talent strictly construed, that is to say, a sort of higher starting point with artistic ability. It's that it's just easier for them to practice than someone who hates practicing or struggles with ADHD or something like that. So things can, and in a sense, it's like that is talent, right? That is like talent. It's just not talent strictly construed in the way most people use the word. So all of those things, they feed each other, they support each other, they complement each other. Talent is like a very contingent idea. It's built up of tons of things. But it really, in the long run, doesn't matter. It's just not a huge deal because no one begins with enough talent that if they want to be great, they don't need to crucify themselves on the cross of art. The range of talent that's available at the beginning saves nobody from heartbreak, introspection, huge amount of growth. I've never seen anybody who had so much talent that they arrived at greatness thinking this was all some very easy, casual endeavor. That has never happened. Anyone who got all the way to the end of the game came out crazy. They went through a lot. So I do believe talent's there. It is very noticeable if you look at a spread of beginners. That's where it's most notable. It really evens out once you're looking at a spread of intermediates. And then once you're in like high intermediate, it's basically irrelevant. You can't really you can't reliably guess where somebody, what amount of talent someone started with based on their work at that point. Yeah. All right, everybody. I'm not gonna read your names to say goodbye like I usually do because my mouth is really hurting. So I'm gonna run. Take care. Thank you all for being here. Happy drawing, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace, everybody.